regardless of snow, there's a few things that the Jersey Shore needs to know about this weekend's nor'easter. All right, so we are looking at the the nullschool.net Earth map. And all this is the GFS basically animated with streamlines. So you can actually go forward into the future, like you can look at models. But at its very first frame, it's super close to reality. So you can kind of look at the first frame of this and get an idea of which way the winds are blowing. Now we're up at 500 millibars here, and we can see our trough right here is starting to carve out. You can see this little V, see that little dent in the streamlines? That's our leading shortwave. And then down here you have our southern stream energy. So northern stream energy, leading shortwave, southern stream energy, and then the kicker is just coming on shore here. We outlined those 4 parts. Bobby Marchurch at EPA WA Weather, he outlined how those parts play together and how they ultimately shape the track of the low. And so far, everything is still going as planned. The low track seems to be very locked in at this point. But if we rock forward, you can see this trough. This trough is going to tilt. It's going to swing down and tilt. You see this leading shortwave move through. And we're just fast forwarding like basically 6, 7 hours at a time here. We get to this point, and that southern energy down here, you can see it's still a little bit, but that phases in, right? So we're fully phased at this point. Now that little swirl right there is about where the low wants to pop. I can tell you this whole area in here is an absolute sea of fluid dynamic chaos. Okay, there's models still can't really resolve the exact which low is going to have priority, because there's 2, some even have 3 lows in this area. A lot of models today have a double barrel low, where there's one off Outer Banks and there's one off Cape Cod, and they're sort of forming an elongated shape. Other models are resolving to more of a singular low with weaker lows around. So this is still needs to be pinpointed. I mean, we still have 48 hours. There's a lot that can change as far as the exact low location, but the track of it is pretty much starting to lock in. So, this video is going to be mostly about coastal impacts in the Jersey coast, but I do want to just recap a little bit. So, most models are showing anything from just a graze of snow showers along the southeast Jersey coast to a miss altogether just offshore, right? But I mean, look at this. Look at the NAM here. You have like a coating to an inch from maybe like LBI down to Cape May. But you see that purple line? That's the 6-inch mark of snowfall. And that pink line where purple goes to pink, that's the 12-inch mark of snowfall. So you're talking about 12 inches of snow falling maybe 50 miles from the coast. So 50 miles is absolutely nothing for a storm this big. Now, I'm not saying the track is going to change, but the precipitation shield is what's the most suspicious to me, right? Now, on this northwest side of the low, you are going to have a lot of what's called subsidence, sinking air responding to the lifting air in here. And you're going to have confluence at the upper levels, where air basically, instead of stretching apart, it comes together and does like a downward high pressure force, which dries out precipitation. So models might be overdoing that. I just want to draw I want to draw a line. The lighter snow here, you have a 977 right here. I would expect the lighter blue here to go all the way like this. I would expect the darker blue to maybe go like this, right? Point being that you normally see more of a concentric precipitation shield with these events. For that reason, that's why the southeast Jersey is subject to a little bit more precipitation if this shield fills out the way it should be. So it's going to be a battle of this shield wanting to fill out versus all that confluence and subsidence. And subsidence is sinking air. It's the opposite of lift. Another thing that we see a lot with these systems is you have the most intense lifting and precipitation set up around here, right on the northwest side of the low. You have a very concentrated area of lifting that sets up here. And what that can do is create an area of subsidence in an area like this. And then in turn, you have areas on the northwest of that subsidence that respond with a little lifting. Everything wants to like balance out like this. No, I'm not doing the 6-7 thing. But that's another small way of how this could go wrong with as far as the precipitation shield being a little further west than what it is now. Again, the track's locked. This is not going to be anything crazy. I don't think we're going to get anything big or major push past 95. We're past that point. Mostly everything, all the players are on the field at this point, and that's not going to happen. But areas along the southeast Jersey Shore, you have to stay vigilant in my opinion, just in case. There's no evidence right now. There's no data-driven evidence right now from any model that suggests more than snow showers pushing into extreme southeast Jersey only. However, we've seen this before. Being on the northwest tip of the precipitation shield 48 hours before a storm this large, that just has its own history to it, right? If you've lived through all these storms, that small northwest jog that it takes in the last 48 hours, that's always on the table. It's not showing now, it's not showing yet, but it's always on the table. So again, we're gonna be vigilant, and people along the coast here, this is a rough area. This area saw a lot of freezing rain fall on top of the sleet, and then plain rain fall on top of the freezing rain this past weekend. That's why you have a snowpack that looks like something that forms on the inside of your freezer. It's like bulletproof ice or whatever, right? So you have that. You really don't want much snow on top of that. It would only take a couple inches on top of that to really, create another bad environment. And I know snow plows and crews have been struggling with this a lot this week. I've heard the overtime stories. I've heard, how rough it is to try to plow this stuff at this point for people who have, waited this long to dig out. So it wouldn't take much there to create an uncomfortable situation on top of that glaze that you have. But enough about the snow. Let's get into some coastal impacts of this nor'easter. We'll go to the Stevens Flood Advisory System. Now, one thing that I am happy about is that most of this flooding guidance was into the moderate level on some of these tidal sensors up and down the coast. Today, they're at the high end of moderate, so they have backed off a little bit. And the reason why they have backed off is because of wind direction. So again, some positives we have for coastal flooding. There's no rain. Nothing's going to drain in and have no place to drain. So we don't have that. Wind direction, it looks much better. Once the low gets close like this, it's more of a north-northeast wind direction. It's not anywhere near to parallel to the inlets that run this way. It's more perpendicular to the inlets. You're still going to have a lot of wind out of the north-northeast. It's going to feel like a windy nor'easter Saturday night through most of Sunday, especially Sunday morning during that 8 a.m. high tide of interest. But this wind direction helps. And if we look at the maximum wind gusts, this occurs right about here. So this is Sunday 14Z. That's like 9 a.m. Sunday morning. Now you see that little division between green and orange. That's the 50 mile an hour gust line. So typically when you see this, that's what's going to hit you in the face if you're on the beach. So if you're standing on the beach, you might see gusts of 50 miles per hour, maybe a little bit greater. But notice when you get away from the coast, winds quickly drop down to just gust to the upper 20s, lower 30s. So, most winds are going to be felt along the coast as far as the coastal nor'easter wind aspect goes. But the entire state is going to be breezy, moderate winds throughout. But only the coast there really has a chance to climb to that like 50 mile an hour gust zone. Now there are a couple unique aspects here with this. Number one, the bay has a lot of ice on top of it, right? Back bays that are between the barrier islands, um, and like the land coast, right? An example would be like Tom's River, Barnegat, Manahawkin, Tuckerton, down through just a couple examples, right? If you look out over the bay in those areas, you're probably seeing some pretty intense ice. Back in the 60s and 70s, people used to drive their cars over it. Do not do that. Please, please do not try to drive your car over the bay. But the ice was thick enough then. So this is a pretty cold air mass, and that ice is thick. It's frozen against docks, pilings, and bulkheads. So even with the high end of minor coastal flooding, that ice is going to want to pick up all that wood, the pilings and the dock. So I'm thinking like dock and bulkheading damage is very possible with this as those water levels rise with the high tide, especially Sunday morning. So if between now and then you can do anything to mitigate that, I know some people have little jets that run water. Some people can chip it away from their bulkhead. Be safe. Don't go out there and freeze yourself and hurt yourself. But just some preparations that if you can take, you might want to prevent some dock damage. Another thing is the freeze after the flood. High end of minor flooding puts water in the streets of a lot of barrier islands, right? It doesn't take much to put an inch or two of bay water into the streets coming back up through the drains, right? So if that happens, once that water retreats, everything's going to be wet, and these are the surface temperatures right at the time of the high tide. There, this is Sunday morning. So I mean, you're talking about 18 to 20 degrees up and down the coast with coastal flooding. So, basic science here, basic states of matter. Salt water freezes at about 24 degrees. It's going to be below that point. So hopefully the winds can dry that out a little bit. But if not, whatever's left over will freeze. So again, dock and bulkheading, possible damage, and a freeze after a flood. Two things that are sort of on the table here that need to be considered in those areas. Another thing you might see is the spray freezing happening when you have high winds that are kind of blowing off the ocean in a nor'easter. Any structures are going to develop ice on them, right? It's going to, I don't know if you've seen like one of those park benches on like one of the barriers, like Long Beach Island, for example, right? The wind whips up the ocean and it freezes on the structure. Now, a park bench is not a big deal, but power lines, low-hanging power lines, and traffic light poles and stuff like that can accumulate that type of spray freeze. So might contribute to power outages if power lines start to pick that up. I'm just trying to imagine all the potential hazards here from a nor'easter happening in an Arctic environment for these areas down here. So I put this graphic out today that sort of summarizes everything. So this red obviously is the coastline where I sort of highlight these things, right? The winds could gust to 50. You could have minor to moderate coastal flooding, beach erosion, frozen dock, bulkhead damage possible, right? So just keep that in mind from this. This A zone is, let's see, better color you can see. A is really not much going on at all. I'd be surprised if you see even a flurry to the north and west of this line. So really not much going on, lesser winds. It's just a breezy Saturday night through Sunday, most likely for you up here. Now, if some snow backs in off the ocean, this B zone would still only be like trace to light. A dusting to, an inch or two at most is sort of the max upward potential because, again, that track is pretty locked. It would be only from the precipitation shield filling in a little bit on that west side. The sea areas are the most susceptible to snow accumulation at this point. So, eastern Long Island down through the most of the Jersey Shore, you have the best chance to see like a coating to a couple inches as it stands right now. But as I showed you, that NAM, it had 6 to 12 just 50 miles offshore. So these sea areas are the most letter C, not sea, like ocean, most susceptible for a band of snow to back off the ocean. And I would change things quite a bit. Again, there's nothing that's showing that right now. I couldn't show you a single model that shows that. You just have to be, again, vigilant is the best word. Prepare for that. But if it doesn't happen, great, right? Um, so again, no major surprises. Nothing major is going to happen. There's not going to be a far west shift where the whole state of New Jersey sees a major snowstorm like Boxing Day blizzard or something like that. It would take one heck of a change at this point. We don't really have an unknown meridional low coming up straight from the Bahamas like we did in March of '93 or Boxing Day blizzard like that. These pieces are over land. They're coming from the west and they're phasing together. Um, so, the track is locked, but the precipitation shield is not, in my opinion. It's not yet locked. So that's important for everyone to consider, especially in these areas here that are dealing with that ice glaze, very hard frozen snowpack. That's about all I got for tonight. We'll see how things look tomorrow. I don't think there is a reason to do any like major snow maps or anything at this point unless things trend a little bit snowier. I might just do like a little graphic like this and throw it out in an article, but we'll see where we stand tomorrow. I'm Jonathan Carr. Have a great night and please be safe.